This is Comet Picks by the Glick.
Hey, I'm your host, Jason Glick.
How you doing, Jason Glick?
I'm doing just fine, John. Yourself?
Oh, not bad, not bad.
Good to know.
Well, what do you have on tap for us tonight?
Well, it's like I have one. It's like not sure what to say, like influential or recognizable or important figures in comics history, because even if this guy doesn't have like the it's like the breadth of work as say like Garth Ennis, Neil Gaiman, or Warren Ellis, or like the sheer importance of someone like say Alan Moore. This is a guy who has done more to advance the recognition of comics as a legitimate art form. It's like in the general public than any of these artists. And that would be Scott McCloud. Now, McCloud, it's like with one book he managed to basically like advance the idea that comics, they are not just like a genre of literature, they are an actual medium. And that would be his landmark 1994 work, Understanding Comics. And I'm just jumping right in here. And it's before that he had done some work, primarily Zot, which I'll get to in a second. But Understanding Comics was basically the series. Basically, he became the work that he became known for. It's like almost as soon as it came out, because it basically broke down like every aspect of comics. Just how do you define it? What does sequential art mean? And how do we perceive it? How do we understand it? How does time work? It's like in it, and just like and it's as well as its history as well, and how it's like how it is recognized by other by other practitioners of the medium in other continents, primarily Japan, because McCloud is big on manga as well, and he gives it major props here. But reading Understanding Comics, I mean, it's just to understand, like, hey, it's kind of like something that if you want to call yourself a serious comics fan, and God knows anyone who read my review of God Hates Astronauts earlier this week realizes that seriousness is not something I value all that highly. It's like this is something that you need to read at some point, because it just breaks down the idea. Like I said, it breaks down the idea of what do comics mean, how do they work, and why they are a medium unto themselves. Just from how McCloud breaks down the comics vocabulary from iconography to just why we respond better to characters that are simpler, more cartoonish as opposed to photorealistic. To how time, to his little pyramid about how how things relate from reality to meaning to pictures. He breaks down things in a great scholarly way that even if it does get a bit okay, yeah, you are kind of lecturing me on this, but it's worth reading, because he also just because of the information he imparts on regarding the medium itself. I went to a panel at Anime Expo several years back by Jake Tarbox, who does lots of manga localization. How he talked about wanted to give it a book on a panel on comic self-defense, how to defend the comics you're reading to everyone you know. And basically everything he said was from Understanding Comics. Just for like I said, for how time progresses in comics, to panel layout, to how closure works, how you basically fill in the gaps yourselves, from your perception, from the different types of panel progression. Honestly, it's a fascinating and essential read for anyone who has been reading comics. For an extended period of time. And it just, I don't know. It's kind of hard to put into words a book that is completely about words and pictures. but it remains an essential read. It's like even today, just because of like the lessons it teaches are just so essential and universal. And McCloud also remembers like, hey, that it's not all about just hammering people with information. There's also like just the simplest bit of irreverence um, packed into it as well. So I mean, so basically, out of the three works we're going to be talking about here, understanding comics is the one thing you need to have in your library. I mean, chances are it's like, if you're listening to this, you maybe already do, and I'm just being redundant here. But, if you do have understanding comics in your library, I'm willing to bet that you may not have much else by McCloud in here. Now, I haven't read his subsequent works, Making Comics and Reinventing Comics, because they haven't, been established as quite say the benchmark work that understanding comics is. In fact, McCloud got himself into some hot water years ago when he was talking about when he was advancing the idea of micropayments as a means for supporting webcomics creators, and this is back in the day when series like when there were sites like Modern Tales basically put up all their work, say their series like say Shane and Gary's Great Narbonic behind paywalls, and he was just saying, this is that just dispensing, like say, just a few cents every day is at a certain time. It's just kind of a good idea for people, for artists to survive, and people like almost crucified for him for that. Considering and the biggest argument against that idea was the fact that you had series like Penny Arcade, Schlock Mercenary, Slay Freelance that were all getting like they're all surviving on it's like on the amount of on the audience they have, and just like making money off merchandise and books and whatnot. And when you talk about putting up your work behind a paywall, it's like you're saying like, hey, it's like this work has to be better than the stuff that I'm getting for free. And if you're saying that your work is better, and so hey, you're saying your work is better than say something like The Order of the Stick, that's I'm gonna call bullshit on that. Still, it's kind of worth noting how things have actually come around to McCloud's theories in recent years with the rise of crowdfunding sites like Kickstarter, and more relevantly Patreon, which basically allows you to promote people for like for a set amount of dollars. So in the end, McCloud maybe having the last laugh here, and it's like even then it's like he's even though he's best known for understanding comics, he's also he is still a formidable talent in writing and drawing his own work. In fact, the series that got him noticed initially was a series called Zot back in the 80s and early 90s. A story about about a girl named Jenny who winds up crossing into a parallel dimension that's kind of like an idealized futuristic version of our own, where everything things are much better, but there's still some issues as well. And she winds up bonding with Zot, who's kind of like a superhero do-gooder. It's like of that world, and the series basically chronicles their adventures together. Now, a good chunk of the series, about 26 issues, were reprinted in the complete black and white collection back in 2008. And this series, while it omits the first 10 issues, which are, as I understand, were basically a big chase scene trying to get the key that unlocks this great treasure, the 26 issues that are collected here are pretty entertaining, like superheroistic fiction here, in the sense that you've got this girl who is she's an ordinary girl like on our boring realistic world, who gets to hang out with this great guy who's kind of like everything that that our world is not. It's like they have they have lots of fun adventures, like proceeding against the various villains of the world. Whether it's Dr. Bellows, who is the evil steampunk villain who wants to who's bitter about how his contributions have just been ignored, as his ultra pollutive stuff has been disregarded in place of regular clean energy stuff. There's Zybox, the giant robot who wants to take over the world and basically bend humanity to his will. The Nine Jack Nine, who is the technology run amok and basically works as a hired killer for the highest bidder, and the Blot, who is corporate avarice given physical form. These are all fun, entertaining superhero type stories, and it's like it definitely benefits from the fact that they're not hemmed in by the fact that they're part of a shared universe from Marvel and DC. I mean, McCloud can actually take these stories in interesting directions. There's one point where one of the characters in the Nine Jack Nine arc just gets vaporized right out of nowhere, and you're just wondering what the hell happened here, or just taking the or just like how Zot winds up finding out about the whole concept of selling out. It's like in his venture against the Blot. McCloud is kind of like, he's pretty hard on himself in the commentary sections, which I love because I've said before, I love it when creators actually take the time to dissect their stuff, and he's kind of like and McCloud is kind of condescending on himself to the point where he's kind of like, yeah, it's like there's some of this stuff holds up well, others like others it just makes him cringe, but overall it's like, the first let's see, 17 issues are pretty entertaining. Just good examples of the kind of avant-garde superhero stuff that people were trying out in the 80s. It's like in the black and white market from studios like Eclipse, before they went under and all. And also the first half of the book, the first 17 issues are like heroes and villains, which is like superhero stuff. And it's also, in addition to the stuff I mentioned, it's got a great 2-part fill-in that McCloud did with infamous artist Chuck Austin, before he went to write terrible Avengers and X-Men stories. He did a 2-part fill-in where McCloud did the layouts and Austin did the fill-in art, which even though only McCloud's breakdowns are featured in this collection, they still come up. It's basically Zot trying to get to level 99 of a complex before it blows up, and it's a pretty thrilling experience. It's like, if I wonder what it would be like with Austin's finished work, but still it's pretty good work. But then you get to the what are called the Earth stories in the final 9 issues, and there's basically the stories of what happens when Zot, who gets stranded on Jenny's world, our Earth, and has to live there, and they just come face to face with all the travails and struggles that the humans, that the regular people here encounter. I mean, there's some cute moments, such as when he seeks around Jenny's school invisible, or at one point when he goes looking for crime in New York in one issue, and that's the issue where McCloud basically says in his commentary that he wants to take his younger self and pat him on the head, saying, "Good job, but let's stick a bit closer to home next time." So it kind of works for what it is, but then you get some of the later stories, such as when Jenny's mom has to confront the fact that her divorce from her husband is going to become final, and we get some information, some insight into her history with her husband and her children, and also we get we get information on Jenny's other circle of friends, like comic book geek Ronnie, who's basically a stand-in for McCloud and his buddy Kurt Busiek. It's like and Brandy, who comes off as like the most optimistic hippie ever, but that's all done just to mask some really crippling personal issues as well. And then you also got Jenny's friend Terry, who is struggling with her sexual identity, and that's easily one of the best stories in the collection. Because not only does it deal with these issues in it's like an honest and believable way, but also the ending is really special, and it's one of and it's a really great use of the comics form as well. It's like overall, the it's like the whole McCloud's whole Zot collection. I mean, it's a picture of an artist writer artist who's trying to find his voice and trying out new stuff in an era that rewarded experimentation, and it's still pretty entertaining. It's like all these years on. It's still kind of an artifact of its time, but I enjoy it. But rereading it for this, I still enjoyed it. And it's also worth noting, though, that while McCloud said that he was prepared to for understanding comics to live in the shadow of his Zot work, apparently within a few months, Zot became the series that he did before Understanding Comics. Just to give you an idea of the influence that Understanding Comics had, it's like in the time that it had come out. And even though McCloud has done lots of random work since then, like writing some of the Superman Adventures comics for DC, doing some online Zot strips, and other work here and there, he hasn't really done a whole real big graphic novel or extended work fiction, since Understanding Comics, Reinventing Comics, and Making Comics. Then a couple weeks ago, we got the Sculptor. Sculptor is something that he has had in the back of his head for a while, and after years of development, we are finally graced with his presence. And I know that I said at the end of the last podcast that I really liked it. I liked it. It's like I still like it, but it's I guess rereading it and letting it sit in my head has caused me to think that it's caused me to quantify it a bit, say a bit more in the end, because let's see, it's a story of David Smith, who is an artist who is undergoing what can be cheerily called a rough patch as we begin the story. It's like he had a promising show at one point, but then he wound up having a big falling out with his sponsor, and has basically been struggling with other jobs, including flipping burgers, in order to make ends meet ever since that falling out. He just hasn't been able to get back on track since then. Then he's celebrating his birthday with at a bar in New York, and he's drowning his sorrows. He meets his great uncle Harry. So Harry shows up, and they start talking about what's going on, give the reader some information about what David's current state. And David says, "Yeah, it's great seeing you, Uncle Harry. I haven't seen you since you died." And that's when the scope, God damn it, of the Sculptor becomes clear, because Harry is actually death taking the form of a human to experience what life is like every couple thousand years, as opposed to every 100 years like it was in Neil Gaiman's Sandman. I mention this because Gaiman has a cover quote saying the best graphic novel I've read in years. Not what I would say, but I still enjoyed it, because the Sculptor takes us on a great an epic personal journey for David as he tries to get back on track, from the help of his gay buddy Ollie, trying to get back into human contact. Also being the victim of a flash mob, as he gets on the picture of he's the victim of a flash mob. Basically has a angel coming down to tell him that everything will be all right. And then when he meets the actual person who portrayed the angel later on, it's like he falls immediately in love with her. It's like, and spends a good portion of the novel trying to improve the validity of his love. Except that the reason that Death has come to meet David is that he wants to offer him a deal, in the sense that he'll give David the ability to sculpt anything he wants with his hands, except that he will only have 200 days in order to do it. And after getting a taste of what he can do, David says, "Done." And so basically, it becomes a race for David to just make the most of these 200 days, create and it's not just about just creating the one singular work. He creates lots of great personal works, but it's not. But he's also just. But it's just not the thing that's going to gain the fame and recognition and the approval that he desires. And also, as he falls more and more in love with Meg, how is he going to cope with her, with the fact that if I do say that I love her, what's she going to be? How's she going to respond when I die without warning in 200 days? So it's like you got some interesting setups here, and it's like there's a lot of familiarity to these things, but McCloud does an excellent job of making David into the kind of character who, even if he is kind of self-absorbed, socially awkward and inept, and he is someone we can care about, and ultimately respond to. Same as with Meg, who which evolves into more than just being the free spirit girl, the girl of David's dreams that she initially comes off as. She's got her own issues as well, and David has to help her deal with them as time goes on. What the issue I have with this is that there is kind of a certain familiarity to these concepts and how they play out, and there's nothing really genre busting about how McCloud deals with them. I mean, story does kind of follow a fairly conventional path. Throughout, but it's still worth reading because of the emotion, and drama that McCloud successfully invests in the story, and he does it in a way that things don't, that it never becomes that it doesn't trigger my cynicism, or skepticism about the story. The problem is that it kind of brushes up against the my issues with magical realism in a way that Zot never did, because while Zot basically establishes the real world and the fictional world, in a pretty clear and definite manner, the David's ability and his conversations with death are kind of pretty easy to segregate from most of the book, in the sense that people aren't observing him do this stuff, but it's kind of credibility in the world is preserved. But then you get to the end of the book, and the end of the story, and David's using all this stuff all of his powers in full view of people in New York, and you're wondering why aren't people just saying, "Holy fuck, man! Why is he able to manipulate all this shit with his hands and everything?" And just saying, why is this person who has this great ability? Why is he why are people just not just completely freaked out by all this stuff that's going on here? I mean, it just pushes against suspension of disbelief in bad ways for me, and that's ultimately that's kind of a deal breaker, though. I mean, God knows, you look at the end, you get to the end, and it's hard not to be affected by by David's final work of art and his life and the skill that in the moment we see his life flash before his eyes. I mean, it's like I said, it's hard not to be affected by that. But in the end, so your suspension of disbelief has also been, punched in the gut several times by that point. So, Sculptor, when I mentioned this on the podcast last time, I was preparing to say, hey, we may have a contender for best of the year here. Now, it's good, but I'm kind of debating whether or not it'll actually make my top 10. So, good. And definitely proof that, hey, for all, they have that jackass who, somewhere some jackass said, those who can't do, teach, and those who can't teach, teach Jim. And, you could argue that, hey, maybe that's McCloud falls into that category, but I think between Zot and the Sculptor, no, McCloud can do, but even he's going to be known as a teacher, you know, like for the rest of his career. It's like his actual comics work is definitely worth reading. So, John, it's like any particular thoughts on your end about all this stuff?
I think he just has. That's an interesting perspective for a comic writer, artist. He's an artist too. He does his own pencil sketches, right?
Yeah, I mean, all the stuff I talked about here, he is writer and artist for all of them.
Yeah, yeah. I just think it's an interesting perspective, and fascinating. I've never, really heard of him before, so I'll be looking into him.
Cool. All right, so next time, I've got something I've been waiting years, I tell you, to do, because because now that the Neon Genesis Evangelion manga is finally finished, I am going to have my buddy Rob, who years ago came on this show to talk about Irredeemable and Incorruptible with me, because while he is a big-time comics and anime fan, he has not actually seen Neon Genesis Evangelion, the anime.
What?
Yes. And when I told him this, I pressed him and said, "Hey, you know what? I want you to read the manga adaptation of it and find out." And I wanted to pick his brain on just how does the manga hold up? Hold up when you haven't seen the anime and you don't have that frame of reference to fall back on.
All right, well, stay tuned.
This is assuming that he that in the 3 weeks that he's had with the manga that he'll have finished it by the time we do this. Yep. So we'll see.
All right, then we'll catch you next time on Comic Picks by the Glick.
All right, later.
All right.